Myra Mabel Shirley, who would go down in history as Belle Starr, was born on February the 5th, 1848 in Carthage, Missouri. Her parents, John and Eliza Shirley, were a prosperous farming family. Belle was the sixth of 12 children, but her intellect and spirit set her apart from her brothers and sisters, and she was given the nickname May, a fitting symbol of her blooming energy and her potential. Belle's father John was said to come from a well-off Virginia family, but he was considered an outcast, and he moved to West Indiana, where he was married and divorced twice. Belle's mother was Elizabeth Hatfield Shirley, and John's third wife, and a relative to the Hatfields of the famous Hatfield-McCoy feud. And sometime around 1860, Belle's father sold their farm, and he moved to Carthage, and he bought a livery stable and a blacksmith shop in Town Square. Belle received a classical education. She learned to play piano, and she even graduated from a female academy that her own father had helped to found. But in 1861, when she was only 13, the Civil War struck close to home. The Shirleys were known as Southern sympathizers, and Belle's elder brother Bud joined Quantrill's Raiders, a notorious group of Confederate guerrillas. Bud's involvement in the war left a lasting impression on young Belle, and it was during this time that she met Jim Reed, a handsome young man with a rebellious streak. But little did she know, this man would lead her down a path of lawlessness and notoriety. Belle married Jim Reed in 1866, and following their marriage they moved to Texas, where Jim immersed himself in criminal activities, and Belle, the ever-devoted wife, stood by her husband. Despite her initial hesitations, she found herself progressively drawn into the life of crime, and her education and intelligence gave her the edge, and she soon became an active participant in Jim's illegal deeds. In the late 1860s, the Reeds became involved in horse theft and bootlegging, and their reputation grew, and so did their list of enemies. In the 1870s, Jim was killed by a member of his own gang. The death of her husband left Belle a widow with 2 young children. But despite the hardship, she remained undaunted. She remarried twice, first to Bruce Younger, an alleged member of the notorious Younger Brothers gang, and then to Sam Starr, a Cherokee Indian and well-known outlaw. With Sam, Belle settled in Indian Territory, present-day Oklahoma, where they engaged in horse theft and harbored outlaws. Belle Starr's notoriety grew. Her reputation as an intelligent, fearless woman living in a world of lawlessness made her a figure of fascination. Newspapers began calling her the Bandit Queen, and she was known for her flamboyant style, often riding side saddle while dressed in velvet skirts and plumed hats and sporting 2 pistols. Belle's reputation as the Bandit Queen grew, not just for her involvement in theft and robbery, but also for being ruthless. It was said that she would not hesitate to draw her pistols on anyone who dared to cross her, whether they were law enforcement or fellow outlaws. And she was known to have a sharp tongue and her threats were not to be taken lightly. On more than one occasion, she took the law in her own hands, handing out punishment for those around her who failed to pay a debt. Belle and Sam were arrested several times, and in 1882 they were charged with horse theft and tried at Fort Smith, Arkansas, under the jurisdictions of the infamous hanging judge Isaac Parker. Belle's charisma and knack for drama made her a celebrity during the trial, but in the end, both she and Sam were found guilty and sentenced to prison. She served 9 months at the Detroit House of Corrections of Detroit, Michigan, and she proved to be a model prisoner. And during her time in jail, she won the respect of all the officials. But on the other side, Sam was incorrigible, and he was assigned to hard labor. In 1886, she eluded conviction on another charge, and around that same time, Sam Starr was killed in a gunfight by his alleged cousin, law enforcement officer Frank West, and both of the men died. Once again a widow, she continued her outlaw ways, and she eventually took on a young lover by the name of July Starr, who was believed to be a relative of her late husband. However, her days were numbered, and on February the 3rd, 1889, 2 days before her 41st birthday, Belle was ambushed and killed, and her murder remains unsolved to this day. Eddie Reed, the son of Belle Starr, was convicted of horse thieving and receiving stolen property, and in July of 1889, Judge Parker sentenced him to prison in Columbus, Ohio. Belle's daughter, Rosie, known as Pearl Starr, she became a prostitute trying to raise funds and get her brother released. And she eventually did obtain a presidential pardon in 1893. And Eddie, he became a deputy in Fort Smith, and he killed 2 outlaw brothers named Crittenden. In 1895, and him himself was killed in a saloon in Claremore, Oklahoma, December 14th, 1896. Pearl operated several bordellos in Van Buren and Fort Smith, Arkansas, from the 1890s all the way up to World War I. Belle Starr's life was a wild and untamed tale of resilience and rebellion. Her story as the Bandit Queen, it lives on, and she was known for a woman who carved her own place in a world dominated by men. Despite the loss in her life, there was an undeniable allure to her story, a woman who lived and died on her own terms.